Okay, so I've already talked about how there is no single best ultimate sword, or weapon for that matter, that just beats everything else flat out and is superior on the planet or whatnot, and that the outcome of a fight is largely dependent on the skill and physical fitness of the combatants. But the thing is that when comparing different weapons, depending on what you're going up against, what your opponent has, a particular weapon can leave you at an advantage or disadvantage against something else in particular. Doesn't mean that it's the best or worst or whatever. It just means that the unique strengths and weaknesses play out in a certain way against the strengths and weaknesses of another sword or other weapon. For instance, if you're armed with a sword with a short blade like this, relatively short, and you're going up against a spear, yeah, I still haven't finished it yet. Too busy making videos for you guys. But if you're going up against that, you are at a disadvantage. Of course, you may say that once you get past a certain spot, like once you get past the spear point and inside of your opponent's guard, yeah, then of course the shorter sword is more maneuverable, more nimble. You can pretty much overwhelm them at that point. But the main difficulty is getting past this. Because if you have two fighters of equal skill and equal physical fitness, the spear simply offers you the advantage of, well, reach for one, because you can cover a lot of reach with this, of course, and it is also still pretty quick. You can make very quick deceptive thrusts with this. Of course, I don't have much space right here to demonstrate anything, but you can thrust out very quickly, you can change direction very quickly, you can feint very easily, so you can definitely keep your opponent at bay with this and make it very difficult for them to approach. And of course they have to approach to get inside their range. You don't start the fight at your ideal range. You will most likely start the fight at a distance where neither of you can attack one another. That's usually how it goes, and that's generally the way you want to manage the distance in a fight. You want to stay at a range where it takes either of you a step to actually be able to attack, because that's the safest distance, of course, for both of them. The spear fighter can, of course, see your approach pretty quickly. The thing is, even if you have something like a dagger or a knife, let's just go with this Bowie knife here. Let's say you have a long knife. Of course, this is much quicker to wield than a spear, especially short range. If I were to, well, I do have confined space right here, so if I imagine I would have to attack the camera with my spear, yeah, I'm struggling with this quite a bit, especially since I don't have any space right here. There's the wall, so it's very difficult. But even if I had the space, it would still be kind of awkward to fight at such a close distance. Whereas with a knife like this, I can just keep attacking from all kinds of different angles and directions and just unleash a flurry of attacks, if you will, which are extremely difficult to defend against. This is also what makes hand-to-hand combat involving blades so freaking dangerous, because you have to be extremely quick and have very good reflexes to deal with it. But that is only if you have already come past the defense of the spear, and that is going to be extremely difficult, because you'll have to rush in basically, and as soon as you do that, the spear fighter sees that and goes, aha! Yeah, very theatrical, I know. But they will very easily be able to respond to your movement and skewer you, basically. So it takes extra skill to deal with something like that. And also, similarly, if you're going up against a longsword, say with a comparatively short sword, yeah, you're facing a bit of an extra challenge because of the reach. Even if the sword is significantly lighter, let's just say we have a very, let's say we have a very light saber like this here. This is extremely light. It's almost kind of whippy. You can change directions very easily, and you're extremely quick with this. So you can't move this as quickly as that, at least not without being significantly more exhausted, because you have to put more effort into it. You can move this very quickly too. You just have to put more energy into it than you have to put into this. And this can ultimately be maneuvered more quickly, you can change direction more quickly, and so on. But the thing is, this, with the reach, can still be quicker than the saber, because you have to cover less distance to actually reach your opponent, and also it takes you less to adopt to the right distance. If you are holding this sword right here and you have to take, say, just one step to close in the distance to be at your right reach to attack, at the same distance your opponent with this saber right here would most likely have to take 2 steps. So that gives you more time. 2 steps instead of 1 means you have more time to react to what's going on and to see, aha, he's trying that, he or she or whatever, and I have to respond to it like that. So it actually gives you more reaction time, if you will. And one thing that is often overlooked is this right here is a weapon too. A shield, or in this case a buckler, is quite often treated as armor in games, but it's not. It's a weapon, really. You're wielding it like a weapon, and you can also attack with it. You can strike with it. If you have a sword and are going up against a long sword or another longer weapon, you are at a disadvantage because of their additional reach and because it takes you longer to get to them. However, if you have a buckler and sword, or a shield and sword, it's a complete game changer. You can actually even be at an advantage in that situation, because it's easier for you as you're closing in and you see your opponent react to it. They're attacking you as you're closing in. You can parry the strike with your buckler and then move in with the sword, and also you can protect yourself while striking. And of course you can also do it the other way around. You could, say, parry with the sword and then strike with the buckler. So this makes quite a bit of a difference. But of course you can't say that, oh, the one-handed sword is the best because you can combine it with a buckler. It doesn't come as a package. It just really depends. And this is a particularly weird combination, by the way. Gladius and buckler are completely anachronistic, but whatever. It really depends on the individual combination, the setup. What are you armed with? What are you going up against? And it also depends a lot on, is it your primary or secondary weapon? Something like this, cute little karambit, is, if you were to try to use this against a sword, yeah, you would be at a huge disadvantage. You would be kind of screwed. However, if you have it as a secondary backup, this can suddenly be a lifesaver. This can suddenly seem like the greatest weapon in the world at that moment. Let's say your 2 swords are bound up, or you have somehow managed to move in really closely in grappling distance, maybe, and then you just grab this thing and just start really working your opponent at close range. Then it becomes suddenly extremely useful. Well, I can tell this was a lot of blah blah. I also meant to talk about axes, but I'll just leave that for a separate video. There is a lot to talk about anyway, since axes are very peculiar in many ways. So I'll leave that for another video. And for now, well, I hope it's clear now that things are not that simple. You know, whenever you're talking about the realities of combat, or reality in general, reality has this nasty habit of being very, very complex and many-faceted, or whatever you want to call it. It just really depends on a lot of different factors. So whenever someone makes a blanket statement like this is the best thing, this is the best weapon, blah blah. You always have to take that with a grain of salt, if not outright think that that person probably doesn't know what they're talking about because they haven't specified what kind of situation it is supposedly best for and why. So whenever somebody says something like that, ask them for the exact reasons why they think so and the exact situation that they're thinking about and what they're going up against in that scenario, because that makes a hell of a difference.